So today I wanted to sit down with this rulebook and some minis and answer the question, just what the heck is the Silver Bayonet? In this video, I want to talk about the Silver Bayonet, the miniature skirmish game by Joseph A McCullough. I chose to make the Silver Bayonet the second video in this series because I created a Silver Bayonet unit for a day-long mini-campaign that I played in late January. In this video, I'll answer the question of just what the heck is the Silver Bayonet by starting with answering the question of why the Silver Bayonet is called the Silver Bayonet. I'll also explain how the game is played on a very fundamental level, what type of miniatures are used, and the background and lore of the setting. I'll also tell you how you can get started playing the Silver Bayonet. Joseph A McCullough is a prolific game designer. He has created Stargrave, Frostgrave, Rangers of Shadowdeep, Oathmark, and the Silver Bayonet. While his other games are firmly planted in a sci-fi or fantasy setting, the Silver Bayonet is set in an alternate, historical setting. And this setting is set during the Napoleonic Wars, and yet he adds in additional fantastical and horror elements such as vampires and trolls, goblins and ghouls. The Silver Bayonet is in fact considered a game of Napoleonic Gothic horror. The rulebook was first published by Osprey Publishing's Osprey Games imprint in 2021. As the wars of Napoleon ravage Europe, chaos and fear reign, and the darkness that once clung to the shadows has been emboldened. Supernatural creatures, vampires, werewolves, ghouls, and worse take advantage of the havoc, striking out at isolated farms, villages, and even military units. Whether they are pursuing some master plan or simply reveling in their newfound freedom is unknown. Most people dismiss reports of these slaughters as the rantings of madmen or the lies of deserters, but a few know better. But where do these monsters come from? There are many guesses as to why these horrors have suddenly become real, but everything began when the sky battles began. These were strange echoes of warfare heard after exceptionally brutal and bloody engagements. Mystics, scholars, and other occult investigators investigated these sky battles and found that they were in fact spirits or demonic beings which fed off of the slaughter and were known as the Harvestmen. A secret award called the Silver Bayonet has been created in Britain and is given out to specially formed monster hunting squads. Other countries have also begun assembling their own squads to hunt down and destroy these abominations. These Silver Bayonet units are filled with soldiers, occultists, medics, and even other beings that some consider monsters, such as half-vampires known as Dampiers. These monster hunter units and their campaigns form the miniature skirmish game, the Silver Bayonet. The models used to create Silver Bayonet units can be from other historical miniatures ranges, since the game is set during the Napoleonic Wars, and there are a wide range of historicals that could be used. Britain, France, Russia, Spain, and other countries and other factions can be created and used for the Silver Bayonet. So using historical miniatures from multiple game ranges can also be used to create these Silver Bayonet units. It's quite easy for someone who may already be playing historical miniature games to use their leftovers to build new Silver Bayonet units. But if kit bashing isn't your thing, or you don't already own miniatures you can use for this game, then North Star Military Figures has got you covered. They've worked with Osprey Publishing to create a whole line of miniatures for the Silver Bayonet. There are also monsters and horrors in the Silver Bayonet, and North Star Miniatures has made minis for these as well. If you'd rather use other companies' miniatures, there are of course miniatures from Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Dungeons & Dragons, and even HeroQuest that make great monster miniatures for the Silver Bayonet. The scope and the scale of this game is just right for someone who wants to try something new but doesn't want to invest too much money in a new game. If you have a group of players that want to play this, it's even better. All you need is a rulebook and only 7 or 8 miniatures. The buy-in can be quite low, usually under $100. The game is played on a 3x3 foot table. It's a 28mm scale wargame. The terrain should be consistent with what you would encounter in a European countryside circa 1799 to 1815. So things such as farmhouses, woods, rivers, bridges, fences, bushes, etc. A game of Silver Bayonet lasts from between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, so you can get multiple games in an afternoon. If you're just a player in a campaign, you really don't need a whole lot. The GM should be able to provide the monster miniatures as well as the terrain. If you want to play this game solo, there are rules for that as well. You do need to provide your own terrain and monsters if you are playing solo, of course. And the scope of what's needed then also increases. So we've talked about what the game is about and the scale of it, but how does one actually play the game? Well, there are a few things needed beyond the miniatures and the terrain. Several D10s, a minimum of 2, but probably more realistically like 5 or 6. And they should only be 2 colors between all the dice that you use. You need a deck of standard playing cards, some tokens, which could be coins, or something more specialized if you want. Some cotton balls and a tape measure are all the additional tools and items necessary for gameplay. The 2 colors of dice represent either power or skill. The main mechanics are rolling the 2 dice, adding them together, and adding any modifiers. Objective markers are called clue markers in this game. A deck of cards is used to randomly determine what each clue marker represents, and the table of what those represent are included in the scenarios. The cotton balls are used to show when a model has fired a weapon. Firing a weapon in this game is an action. Reloading is also an action. You have to reload after every shot. So you put down the cotton to show that you've shot next to that model, and so that you know you have to reload before you can shoot again. The game turn is split into multiple phases. So first, both players roll for priority. The player who wins priority then picks half the models in their Silver Bayonet units and activates them and performs actions. The monsters have their own phase where they're either controlled by a DM or they're controlled by a certain set of rules the scenario lays down. The next phase is the second player. So the player who did not win priority then activates and does all the activations with all of their models in their Silver Bayonet unit. Then the final phase, the player who won priority then activates the remainder of their models that they hadn't already activated. It's an interesting solution of alternating activations that splits the difference between Necromunda and Warhammer 40,000. And the Silver Bayonet can be run as a campaign, where between each scenario played, the fighters gain experience, they can upgrade their characteristics, get new weapons and war gear, and they can also die or recruit new fighters. This is a campaign system that is, while unique to the Silver Bayonet, is of course similar to other games such as Necromunda. When forming a Silver Bayonet unit, one must first pick the country that they want to fight for, and then pick a leader. The country determines what specialized units you're able to put into your Silver Bayonet unit, and the leader then is built by picking certain attributes, certain weapons and war gear, and then you also increase several of their characteristics. The rest of the Silver Bayonet unit is bought with a resource pool of 100 points. Each fighter in a unit is worth a certain amount of points, and you spend up to that resource limit of 100. Now that you know a little bit more about the Silver Bayonet, and hopefully have decided if it's right for you, where do you go to get the rules and the models? Well, you just need a basic rulebook. There are a lot of extra expansions, but the basic rulebook is all you really need to play the game. That's available directly from Osprey Publishing, their website, or you could get it from Barnes & Noble, or Amazon, or your local friendly game store if they have it. My recommendation is to go to Badger Games' website. The great thing about Badger Games is they have gathered all the hardest to find miniatures and terrain from around the world, and they've put it in one convenient spot on their website. You can buy the books from them, and there are also many expansion books that you can also buy from them, including Canada and even Egypt. Badger Games also carries many of the historical miniatures from companies such as Wargames Atlantic, Victrix, Perry Miniatures, and if you buy from Badger Games, enter the code JD2024 and it'll help out the channel. Well, I really do hope that this video has informed you about the Silver Bayonet, answered the question, just what the heck is the Silver Bayonet, by explaining the setting, what types of miniatures are used, and how to play the game. I hope I've also given you a good roadmap for what to do to get started in the Silver Bayonet if it sounds interesting to you. If you want more content about the Silver Bayonet, just let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about this game. As always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.